but we must be doing something right. The conversations that we simply don't have in this country about impacts, about whether or not the massive nursing crisis, the staffing crisis in nursing, which is reported in some places today, is in some way linked to the tougher immigration policies being brought in, whether or not the fact that the supermarket shelves seem to be empty sometimes in ways that I don't remember them being 10 years ago, or even 20, whether or not the fact that they took the sell-by dates or the use-by dates off some fresh produce, all of these things, whether or not it has become much, much harder for you to be in business since this decision was taken. All of these things, if it was the other way round, your media would have been absolutely full of them. But of course, any evidence that your media betrayed you is going to be completely ignored by your media. And when I use the word media, obviously I don't mean all media, because that includes me. I just mean the kind of clowns that put words like betrayal on their front pages today, when all of the things that they told their readers would happen as a consequence of voting to leave the European Union didn't just not happen, but in many cases the actual opposite happened. But it's still a betrayal. This is an example from Chris. A quick answer to your question, James. Yes, it is the right time. It's been the right time for 10 years. I run a small removals business, and it's costing me days of my time overseas due to customs formalities, not to mention at least £700 per van load just for paperwork for my customers. That's before import tax. Times that by the number of trucks carrying tens of thousands of pounds worth of goods. That's your cost of living crisis right there. Everything coming in and out, he is saying, is costing more than it would have done before. So you end up seeing the massive bulk of that being passed to the consumer. Never mind all the other layers of problems on top of that, such as kicking out all the truck drivers who used to have a right to live and work in the UK, the 90-day limits for both UK and EU trucks, that's UK trucks operating in the EU, and now the EU trucks operating in the UK. All of this is time and money, and that's why one bag of shopping from Lidl is costing around 50 quid these days. Please excuse any typos. I've quickly voice dictated this because I'm very busy, but I needed to get it across. And that's the conversation we don't have. You know, it's why Kieran, the van driver, became an almost totemic figure on this programme. Somebody from a smaller position than Chris is, simply explaining what was going to happen. And then it happened. And there were so few people having that conversation, he ended up getting booked by Sky News and everybody else because you just weren't hearing from people. You'd have Jacob Rees-Mogg going, oh, everything's going to be marvellous. Cheap shoes for peasants. It's all going to be wonderful. And Boris Johnson going, well, they are... And anybody coming from the world of retail, the world of import, the world of export was just shouted down. They just shout Remainer. What was the thing they used to shout? David Davis would be going, well, they need us more than we need them. And you'd be going, I don't think that's true. Traitor, shut up. And everybody who knew what they were talking about got shouted down. So Alan in Prestwich, speaking as a Labour councillor, as he told you, saying that Andy Burnham should not be bottled or derailed, or whatever word we're using to describe one of the potential consequences of Wes Streeting's intervention. At some point, the people who are correct are going to have to start taking the fight to the people who are either wrong or lying or both. And if not now, then when? So if it's not going to be in Makerfield this year that they actually start saying to £5 million Farage, mate, you promised us the earth, you've delivered precisely nothing. And if you're going to claim that it could have gone better if we'd done things differently, I want it right now in black and white. You've got enough money to commission goodness knows who to actually provide an account of how Brexit could and should have gone better. And while we're at it, I thought you said you were going to leave the country if it failed. So has it failed? Yes, it has failed because it should have gone... Well, if it's failed, why are you still here? So take the fight to them now. And if not now, then when? If not now, then when? Let's add that to the list. 0345 6060 973. You can reject, build upon, or expand my 80-20 theory. You sit here now being... Is the word querulous, I think? Saying it needs to be 80-20 before you can even start this process. So how is it ever going to get to 80-20 if all of the people who've been proved right by everything are too frightened to talk about it because they get called names and attacked by people like Nigel Farage in the Daily Mail? How are you ever going to get to the point where you need to get to restore order if all of the people who can see the disorder and predicted it or have come to recognise it subsequently, are frightened of having the conversation because they don't like the tactics or the tone of the people who spread the lies and caused the catastrophe. And I suppose electorally, if you're looking at Reform's results in the council elections, less so in Scotland and Wales, but you're looking at the results in England and you're thinking, well, these are his people. These are the Brexiters who have now moved on to Reform. We can't afford to alienate them. Well, when can you afford to alienate them? If they are alienated by the truth, do you abandon the truth? If someone is alienated by facts, do you abandon facts and start aping the tactics of the liars that have conned them? And that is where the Labour decision, or the Starmer-level decision to go after Reform voters instead of Green voters, looks ever more silly, ever more idiotic. I wrote an article for a newspaper at the weekend, first time in a very, very long time, in which I completely callously harvested many of the killer insights that you shared with me last week, but I'm afraid the conclusion I arrived at was that simple decision to go after Reform voters instead of recognising progressive or Green or Labour voters and trying to look after them was catastrophic for Keir Starmer. And that's why he is now reaping what he sowed with the leadership challenges. It was in the I newspaper, if you're remotely interested. Anne's in Ashton in Makerfield, which is appropriate enough. I had no idea we were so big in Makerfield. Anne, what would you like to say?
Well, I'm a long-time listener, so very big in my house.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Only to you, though.
All right.
So, no, I'm listening to you and I'm agreeing with you, but I'm feeling not now.
God,
because, as you know, I live in a big Reform area. Ashton itself is only part of Makerfield, which much of the media don't really seem to know.
Sure.
Because in the last few days, our little town has been totally inundated by everyone. We've got people all over the streets. They seem to be picking a type who they want to interview.
That's interesting.
Yes, they're judging. They're outside a certain pub, which you will guess which one I mean.
Well, I won't be able to name it, but you mean the one that perhaps is known locally for having quite a far right leaning element or a very right wing leaning element of patron.
Yes.
Fair enough. We've all got one of those in our neck of the woods.
We have. And when they were in Wigan the other week, they were doing the same.
Okay.
It's very interesting. They let people walk by and then they choose. They seem to be interviewing a lot of older voters.
That's interesting.
Yeah, one or two young ones. And one I did see, when he was asked, did he like Andy Burnham, he said no. And when he was asked why, he said, I just don't like him, which is what I get all the time about Keir.
I just don't know why, but I know that I don't.
I know I don't. Now, I felt thrown to the wolves last week when Josh and Andy did what they did. I'm a long-time Labour supporter and voter, and I supported Keir Starmer for the leadership. I used to be supporting Andy. I canvassed for him in the mayoral thing, and all that, being a waspy woman, which is difficult these days.
Yes.
But I just felt, wow, because I know that they just elected so many Reform councillors. And I know amongst people, particularly of my age in this area, they lean towards Farage. They really do.
Yes.
And the biggest policy that they're concerned about is not in privatising the NHS, which is what they should be, not means testing state pension, which is what they should be. There's only one. And you know what I mean. It's immigration.
The boats, well, immigration in general, which is plummeting, although I suspect a lot of the people you're talking about won't be aware. And then, of course,
they're not.
The small boats, which are a direct consequence of Brexit-friendly policies designed to stem the flow of legal applicants. How do you account for the fact, watching things as closely as you do, Anne, and anybody looking to do a vox pop in that neck of the woods could do a lot worse than talk to you. How do you account for the fact that the last time they voted for what Nigel Farage told them to vote for, none of the things that he promised would happen have happened, and yet they're coming back to lend him their vote or to give him their vote again?
I don't understand it. It's like they're blind to it. They are literally blinded by the flag. a lot of them.
Okay.
You see, there's certain things that they talk about, and I do have friends. I've been in that situation you just described, not with my family, but with my friends. I've been in that situation where we argued over the dinner table about Brexit years ago. And one of the things that they had a big issue with was the colour of the flipping passport.
God, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, they didn't want the European passport. Now they're all suffering. They call European people all kinds of things, but they all go to Spain. They're all going to France in a couple of weeks to watch rugby. So I just found that really tough.
It's very blinded. Psychology, then, isn't it? It's psychology that I'd forgotten about the passports, and we had a bit of a, almost like a little business on this programme of people ringing in with the reasons why they were going to do it, and they thought that they were going to be able to get their fish and chips wrapped in manky old newspapers again, and there was the bloke who thought that they were abolishing the 3-pin plug. There was another one. I mean, the bendy banana thing ended up on Question Time. Some woman on Question Time saying she was voting to leave the European Union because of something bendy bananas something.
That's right. I had that. I had all this about I want to count things in pounds and stones. I don't want to be using kilograms. I want to measure in yards and feet. That's how I was brought up. The farms down the road used to sell big bags of spuds, and now we have to go to the supermarket. Honestly, I had it all, James, and it was like banging your head against a brick wall. So what I'm worried about now is that people I've heard coming round to the fact of Andy because he lives down the road. He's been very visible in Makerfield all his life, all his career, because he was MP for Lee. He supported our MPs in Wigan.
Yes.
He supported Josh when Josh first came because we had bad flooding in the area. And Andy was very visible helping Josh with that. So, and he went there yesterday, actually, when he was canvassing. But I just think Brexit will really blind them. They'll blind them all. And if it starts being talked about, then they'll turn it. I really do feel they'll turn. The people who turn, I'm very, very.
What about Alan's argument in Prestwich? What about Alan's argument that Burnham should rise to that bait? That rather than hoping it would go away, he should actually take it head on and say to these people, hang on a minute, what happened last time you trusted them? What happened last time you put your trust in these people? What happened to the promises that you were made in 2016? How is that all working out for you?
I think that may be a route he has to do now that West Streeting has done this. To be honest, I got used to the fact that we were fed to the wolves by Andy and Josh. And over the weekend, I started to think, I've got to vote Labour, that's it, I've got to stop reform. I had reform at my door yesterday, which they were given short shrift, but I've now got a notebook full of questions when I go to the town.
Yes.
Because
it's more than Laura Koonsberg's got, Anne, so well done.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, we all know about that. Or the people who bother to listen to the way the media skew it. I think West Streeting, I listened actually to Lewis Goodall yesterday talking about West Streeting. Yeah. And it was very shrewd what he said, that Streeting is actually not going to fight this leadership election. He's waiting for Andy to fail, and bringing Brexit up could do that to Andy, and that is what is worrying me. I think the feelings in this area are so strong.
Do we know why? Brexit. I mean, I know. I've heard what you've said about immigration, and of course that's the calculation that Keir Starmer took, was that if he did address that directly, statistically and evidentially, that it would cut the mustard, it would butter parsnips. It probably won't, because it's an emotional reaction, not an intellectual or even an evidence-based one. But do we know why the narrative of Brexit betrayal would be so toxic for Andy Burnham, when nationally the numbers have shifted quite profoundly, and in terms of the evidence of your own eyes and ears, nobody can really stand up in Ashton's town centre and explain or start listing all of the benefits, all the things that people have received that are positives.
Yeah, I think maybe, those questions need to be asked of reform.
Yes.
Definitely, and they're in my list. But I don't really want to say the word of what I think it is.
That is being appealed to with the narrative of Brexit betrayal. Okay.
I think it's common in Wigan. I think it's common in St Helens, which is the next town along that elected reform.
Okay.
And historically, I'll just say that historically, in our area, as I was growing up, I never saw anyone who didn't look like me.
Yes.
And didn't speak the same language. In the last, I don't know how many years, probably 15 years, more and more people have come into our area that speak different languages and look different. Trying to be diplomatic.
You are doing a great job, and you weaponise that, and people aren't going to be able to change that by voting one way or the other anytime soon. But if you simply say to them, "Oh, that's bad," I'm your man.
My friends, I've got friends and family who also recognise it, and it's they don't like it either. I mean, I detest it, and mainly because I lived in London for 4 years. When I was at uni, and I met people from all over the world, and I think it's cliche, broaden my horizons.
I think you're right. I can sometimes tell, or not tell, but I think that having lived in a really big old city, it doesn't have to be London, it doesn't have to be in this country even, but it does do something, doesn't it? It just diffuses, perhaps even quite visceral or primal fear of the stranger. When you live cheek by jowl with the stranger and they become the familiar, it just breaks that ancient impulse.
And you see other areas close to us, Bolton, Rochdale, Preston, Blackburn, all those places, they did have new people coming in the last 50 years, but we just never seemed to. And then all of a sudden it came, and I think the prejudice has grown. Comes with it, like an impulse reaction, which in its initial instance doesn't make you a bad person. It's the desperation with which you cling to it, I suppose, that determines that. And anybody seeking to capitalise on it by exaggerating or lying or wanting to treat people very differently, criminals, for example, very differently according to their ethnicity, is obviously poisoning the well from which everybody drinks. And what an amazing call, thank you. You put me in mind of that lovely line from Paddington. Mrs. Brown says that in London everyone is different, and that means anyone can fit in. And I think she must be right, because although I don't look like anyone else, said Paddington Bear, I really do feel at home. I'll never be like other people, but that's all right, because I'm a bear called Paddington.